What I have here is Fuji GFX 50S. This is the medium format mirrorless cameras. For those of you who still do not know, this camera has pretty big sensor, even bigger than the so-called full frame. Size of the sensor is one of the main reasons for high image quality. The larger the sensor, the larger are individual pixels, and therefore there will be less noise in images, wider dynamic range, and also better color reproduction. This camera is made mainly for professionals, and the main reason for that is probably its quite high price. It costs around $6,000 body only. Now, the main reason to buy this camera over a traditional professional full-frame DSLR or mirrorless camera is once again the size of this sensor. This sensor gets you better image quality, better dynamic range than most of the competitors, and also you will get quite shallow depth of field. Main competitors of this camera are Pentax 645 and Hasselblad X1D. Hasselblad is much more expensive and in size is similar to Fuji. It also uses a mirrorless concept, but Pentax is a DSLR camera, which means it has a quite big mirror inside and therefore is 2, maybe even 3 times in volume of this Fuji. When we talk about the size of this camera, it is relatively compact as far as medium format goes. But if you compare it to traditional professional DSLR like Canon 5D and Nikon D850, it's about the same size. So keep that in mind. Also, lenses need to be quite big because of the big sensor. Right now what you see is the smallest lens. This is the 63mm, and this combination is maybe 1.5 kg. All other lenses are much heavier and bigger, keep that in mind. Fuji GFX records also video in Full HD resolution. For 2017 that's a bit disappointing. 4K is what is expected today, but I cannot take that as a bad thing because this is a camera made mainly for professional photography and not for video recording. If you need video, you can record some rather good looking footage, but this is not the reason to buy this camera. One of the very good things about Fuji GFX are film simulations, Astia, Sofia, Velvia and so on. For everyone working in JPEG, this is a very good thing because they can get very nice looking images straight from the camera. One of the main reasons to buy Fuji GFX is of course the sensor. This sensor provides the aesthetic unlike any other from smaller formats. With the sensor as big as this, you don't need to have a lens with larger aperture than f2.8. This is plenty to create a very nice subject and background separations. Also, this camera needs to be compared not only to other medium format cameras, but also to full frame professional models like Canon 5DS, Nikon D850 and Sony Alpha 7 R2. Each of them has its strengths and weaknesses, but basically Canon has very high megapixel count, 50, just like this Fuji, but has problems with dynamic range. Sony and Nikon are better with dynamic range, but don't have as good color reproduction as Canon or Fuji. This way, Fuji is probably the best combination of all the worlds. It has higher resolution, 50 megapixels, a high dynamic range, one of the best on the market, probably the best, and also very good color reproduction. Fuji is quite famous for its film simulation modes. Fuji GFX could be probably a good solution for street photography. With 63mm lens, it is not that big. It is big, but it is not that huge. But in my opinion, maybe it is a little bit too slow in terms of autofocus for street photography on a daily basis. Today, medium format is regarded as, let's say, exotic format, but that wasn't the case always. Today people start photography with small formats, actually tiny formats, with smartphones which have sensors as small as this, and then they work their way through to larger formats. But in history, photography actually started with larger formats a large, medium, and then the 35mm turned out to be the most widespread format of all of them. This camera is definitely the best solution for somebody who already knows what he or she wants to shoot, how to set up the scene, how to set up lighting, the camera, when people know what kind of a look they want to achieve with their images. That way this camera can give its maximum. After you have mastered all of the artistic elements in the image, then you can buy a camera such as this and make them technically absolutely perfect. This is the main reason to have this camera. This camera is a bit of a specialized model. It is best for landscape photography, for its weather-sealed body. It is also a perfect choice for studio photography, product photography, and I can see this camera being used also for wedding photography, portraits, fashion and similar types of photography. If you are thinking of buying Fuji GFX, there is basically one question you need to ask yourself. Am I able to sell enough images from this camera so that I can earn in approximately 6 months enough money to completely justify purchase of this camera? If the answer is yes, buy it right away. If not, there are much more affordable cameras on the market.